We are learning today Parsha of Shmini. There's a general question asked. Is there any empirical proof for the existence of God? And today there are, especially on a day like today, which commemorates the uprising in the Warsaw Ghetto, is there any empirical proof? Does God exist? What constitutes empirical proof? And is there any way to prove? Is God perhaps a creation of the human being? That the human being created the notion of God because the human being needs something greater to grapple, to hold on to.
We don't accept other people's notions of God.
So that's one way of looking at it. I believe Yitzchak Barditchev once turned to a heretic. He asked him to do a mitzvah. So the heretic turns to Rabbi Yitzchak Barditchev and says, Rebbe, I don't believe. It's okay, just do the mitzvah. Rebbe, I just told you, I don't believe. I don't believe in God.
Didn't ask you to believe in God.
But he said that's okay. Because the God that you don't believe in, I don't believe in either.
Okay.
In other words, your definition of God, I also don't believe in. So it's obviously a very, very extensive topic. What is the definition of God? What does God mean?
So you got 10 minutes.
God is infinite. And God is not this image up in the sky of someone with a long white beard who holds on to lightning bolts that if you don't do what he wants, he strikes you immediately. This is not the definition of God. So that itself is for a larger topic, but God is infinite. However, one way of looking about this topic is you want to see God?
Yeah.
Definition of God is not when things go good, things go well for me, I believe in God. And things don't go well, I don't believe in God. The existence of God goes beyond feeling and goes beyond my experience, my personal experience. But let's take a look at something in the Parsha, this week's portion, just as an indicator. One of the laws in this Parsha are the laws of keeping kosher. A dietary plan, a dietary system. What are we supposed to eat? What are we not supposed to eat? And so that Moses gives the Jewish people in the desert, he lays out, this is what we're supposed to be eating, this is what we're not supposed to be eating. And the Torah, and Moses gives the signs regarding animals. An animal that has split hooves and chews its cud, that's a kosher animal. You may eat it. It has to be slaughtered properly, but that's a kosher animal. If it doesn't have a split hooves, doesn't chew its cud, it's not kosher. And he goes on. If it has one without the other, says these are shown, among these that chew their cud and have a cloven hoof, you must not eat. The camel, because it chews its cud, but does not have a completely split hoof, this is impure to you. The hyrax, because it chews the cud, but does not have a completely split hoof, it is impure to you. The hare, because it chews its cud and does not have a completely split hoof, it is impure to you. And the pig, because it has a split hoof, which is completely split, but does not chew the cud, it is impure to you. So the question here is, why the elaboration? Why elaborate and say, these are the animals. If it has one without the other, don't eat them. They're impure, don't eat them. Why give examples? So the Talmud asks this question. The Talmud says the reason why these are examples, because the one who created the world made it very clear, these are the only animals, the only creatures that have one without the other. Think about this. When was the Torah given? The Torah was given, according to the Jewish record, 3,333 years ago. Whichever way you look at it, the Torah is ancient. Whether you accept this 3,333 years ago, you don't accept this 3,300 years ago, it's certainly thousands of years old. The Talmud was written over several hundred years, but over 1,500 years ago, certainly.
Okay.
1,500 years ago, did we know what is on the other side of the world?
Not really.
Did we know which animals were on the other side of the world?
No.
Today, even today, do we know beyond a shadow of a doubt creatures that may exist that we're not aware of?
Maybe we don't.
There's no way of saying that. Because there's no way of proving something does not exist.
Correct.
So, how could the Talmud make a statement? These are the animals these are the only animals because these are the only animals that have one without the other.
Oh.
With such certainty. Think about this way. Moses must have been a smart man. One way or another. He must have had a little intelligence. And he must have been this leader of the Jewish people, must have had leadership skills. If you're going to share information that you're not sure of, what would you do?
Shut up.
Either don't know, but don't give as little details as possible. If you're not sure, you're not sure.
Okay.
So if Moses is, let's say Moses or whoever is the person writing the Bible, introducing to us the character of Moses, obviously has an agenda. His agenda is he wants to impart, he wants to imbue a faith of God to this people, that you are the Jewish people, and these are the laws that you are to observe as a Jew. So let's just take, for argument's sake, let's just assume that this individual, this character, is making this up and wants to imbue this faith in the people for whatever reason. Give laws. That's fine. You want to tell your people that these are specific dietary laws for whatever reason, because that may have been an ancient way of being healthy. No, soll sein. That may be an interesting way of that makes sense. But if you're not going to share details. Why, and especially why share details that will blow you out of the water? That will prove you false.
Okay.
Let's say there is an animal that has split hooves and doesn't chew its cud other than the pig. What happens then? Moses, you made this up.
Okay.
There's a very simple thing he could have done. He could have simply said as follows: my dear fellow Jews, keep away from animals that don't have split hooves, don't chew its cud. I'm sure there must have been a little Yidela who raised up his hand. But Rebbe, what happens if it has one without the other? Can I eat half of it? Is it half kosher? One without the other? No, my dear son, no, it's not kosher. One without the other is also not kosher. Ah, thank you, Moses. We got it. Why share that these are three animals that chew their cud and don't have completely split hooves? And the pig is the only animal. That family is the only animal and family that has split hooves and doesn't chew its cud. Why share such information? Why create an opportunity to prove you false? Moses was smarter than that. Other than, this is divine information. And why would the Talmud make such a statement? Maybe Moses just gave examples. No, says the Talmud. He gave these 4 examples because these are the only 4 that exist with one without the other.
How did they know?
Exactly. How do they know? This is divine information. This Kabbalah B'Yadeinu, we have a tradition passed down that these are the only 4 animals.
And so far,
go ahead. Google it.
It's not been disproven.
Ask Rabbi Google, and if there are any other aside from these.
Okay.
Here we find, if you can consider it empirical proof, I don't know, but here is an indicator, a sign in the Torah that gives us a hint that this was not just made up. There are divine indicators. And so does God exist? My barometer of does God exist or not is not about whether some things are painful and whether atrocities take place, which they do. And on this very painful day that we commemorate the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, and we remember the Holocaust. Does God exist? God exists aside from the pain and the suffering. The pain and the suffering is a subject on its own. But here we find in the Torah an indicator. And so when we eat, we are what we eat. And the mitzvah of keeping kosher is something which the Torah tells us. Clearly, it's divine. And so, even in our diet, we have divinity. We can find the divine even in what we eat, in the food that we eat. So, let's find other areas, like finding God within nature, finding God within people, finding God all around us. And what's more important is recognizing that what God expects of us. God expects of us that we should change the world and make it indeed a divine place and bring out the godliness within all of humanity, within all